Most people see rice as just another grain, but in anthropology, rice is something else entirely. It is an algorithm for collective survival, one that allows no mistakes. Unlike wheat, which needs rain and a reasonably lazy farmer, flooded rice demands absolute synchronization, hundreds of people, every day, on time. If wheat allowed the West to invent the idea of personal freedom, rice imposed something different, a hydraulic form of total control. This is the story of how, over 6,000 years, an irrigation field reshaped human society into a perfectly tuned biological machine. A system where discipline is not a moral choice, but a condition for breathing in and breathing out. Unlike dryland crops, flooded rice is a water slave. It requires standing water at a precisely controlled depth, but nature did not make it this way. Rice can grow without flooding, like wheat or corn. Such rice depends on rainfall, requires no shared water system, produces lower yields, and creates almost no hydraulic power. That is why civilizations made a different choice. They deliberately bound rice to water. Flooded fields offered what rain never could: scale, predictability, and control. But that choice came at a price. Water is a flowing resource. It moves through a cascade of fields, from the farmer above to the farmer below. If the farmer at the head of the canal opens the gate too late or takes more than his share, the harvest of the entire valley collapses. Whoever lives higher on the slope physically decides whether those below will survive. In a rice village, power is not a title. It is elevation above the waterline. Gravity became the first hierarchy. Rice destroyed the possibility of being on your own. It forced people to negotiate, to schedule, and to obey shared rules. Cooperation was no longer a moral virtue. It became a biological condition for survival. When survival is tied to water, it is inevitably tied to other people. And when people become part of one system, power emerges. Rice is a system with no margin for error. It requires water at a precisely controlled depth, at a precisely controlled time, in a precisely controlled sequence. One person cannot manage this. 10 cannot either. This is how a chain emerges, one that will repeat for thousands of years. Irrigation, synchronization, discipline, hierarchy, the state. Rice leaves no space for individual decisions. If one farmer delays the water, it is not he who fails. The entire system does. In a rice civilization, selfishness is not a personality trait. It is a form of sabotage. Rice changed the mathematics of survival. The same piece of land could feed 2 to 3 times more people than wheat. But this did not lead to expansion. It led to compression. People did not move outward. They stayed, clustering tighter and tighter around water and irrigation channels. This is how societies emerged, where millions of people lived on limited land, fully dependent on a single system. Under these conditions, freedom stops being the highest value. Order takes its place. But this demographic machine had a hidden biological limit. Rice produces more calories per hectare than almost any other crop. That is why it could feed millions. But in its pure form, rice contains almost no protein. A human can survive on rice, but cannot develop on it. This forced rice civilizations to search for supplements: fish, soy, legumes, fermentation. Around rice, trade networks, markets, and exchange began to form, not as a choice, but as a biological necessity. Rice cultivation is the most labor-intensive process in the history of agriculture. 1 hectare of rice fields consumes around 3,000 human labor hours per year. For comparison, wheat requires 20 times less. Rice does not tolerate approximation. Each seedling is transplanted by hand into the mud of flooded fields at a perfectly measured distance from the next. And it matters who performs this work. Rice transplantation requires fine motor control. For centuries, it was done by women and children. From the age of 5, a child became a unit of labor. A woman was not a guardian of the hearth, but a critical component of the production cycle. Rice shaped the family not as an emotional bond, but as a labor module, where every member was part of a survival system. An error of 10 centimeters means a 10% loss of the harvest, thousands of hours standing ankle-deep in water, a bent spine, the same motion of the hand repeated endlessly. Rice did not just demand concentration, it rewired the nervous system. Rice is not just food. It is a perfect unit of measurement. It cannot be hidden for long. It cannot be falsified. It grows in cycles and is consumed by everyone. That is why rice became the first universal tax base of the East. States did not form around armies. They formed around granaries. Harvests were counted, recorded, and redistributed. The amount of rice determined a family's status, the size of its tax, and its right to exist. In Japan, a feudal lord's wealth was measured not in land, but in koku, the volume of rice capable of feeding one person for 1 year. This is how rice turned power into accounting. Whoever controlled the water counted the harvest. Whoever counted the harvest controlled the people. This was not a tyranny of violence. It was a tyranny of balance. Western armies marched for plunder. Eastern armies moved by schedule. Rice gave Asian states predictable military logistics. A soldier could be fed for months, stored, transported, distributed. But this advantage came at a price. If a rice field was destroyed, the war was lost before the first battle. That is why conflicts in Asia were not fought for cities, but for canals, dams, and fields. To destroy irrigation was to strip the enemy of the future. When a wheat farmer's family grew, he moved outward to claim new land. A rice farmer was trapped by mountains and by irrigation networks. There was no expansion, only intensification. More weeding, more labor, more effort on the same narrow plot of land. In this system, poverty stopped being fate. It became an accusation. If the harvest was small, it meant you had not worked enough. This is how an Eastern work ethic emerged, where success was not luck, but the result of endless, monotonous, disciplined effort. In rice-based societies, expulsion from the community is equivalent to death, not as a punishment, as a consequence. No one survives alone in this system. You lose access to the shared order, to distribution, to the ability to maintain the field. This is how the most rigid mechanism of control emerged. The fear of losing face. It is not shame. It is not guilt. It is the fear of being excluded from the network of relationships on which survival depends. That is why preserving agreement matters more than speaking directly. That is why no sounds like perhaps. Here, meaning matters less than context. Position matters less than place within the group. The group outweighs the individual not by belief, but by necessity. This is not philosophy, not tradition. It is adaptation to an environment where exclusion means disappearance. Asia did not become the world's factory by accident. The production of microprocessors and the assembly of electronics require the same qualities that rice cultivation shaped over thousands of years. When rice paddies turned into factory floors, the behavioral mechanics did not disappear. Only the environment changed. The rice field taught humans two things: synchronization and attention to micro details. If you misjudge the depth of a seedling, you go hungry. If you misalign a component on a circuit board, you create a defect. Thousands of hours spent knee-deep in water became thousands of hours behind a microscope. The logic of the assembly line is the logic of irrigation. You cannot work faster or slower than the group. Your outcome depends on what the upstream neighbor passed down the line. Discipline here is not coercion. It is the natural state of a part inside a larger mechanism. Kaizen is not a fashionable management method. It is an inherited logic of labor, born from endless weeding. The understanding that on the same plot of land, or the same process, there is always another weed to remove. This is the story of how, over 6,000 years, the irrigated field turned society into a perfectly tuned biological machine, where discipline is not a moral choice, but a condition of breathing in and breathing out. Rice did not give us freedom. It gave us scale. Freedom is a privilege of those who do not depend on their neighbor. Scale is the ability to sustain billions where the environment was limited from the start. It was a trade. We exchanged the right to be ourselves for the right to be part of something vast. And today, the world increasingly chooses not autonomy, but the ability to synchronize in digital networks, in global supply chains, in the rhythm of megacities. We no longer fear the tyranny of force. We fear falling out of sync. We fear becoming a faulty part, cut off from the flow. Rice civilization did not disappear into the past. It simply scaled to the entire planet, where survival is no longer a struggle for freedom, but flawless operation inside a system that does not tolerate pauses.